6 dangerous personality types Carl Jung warned us about. Let's begin with an uncomfortable truth. The people who can hurt us most deeply are not monsters hiding in the dark. They are often the ones we trust, the ones we admire, the ones we call friends, mentors, leaders, or even heroes. Carl Jung was obsessed with this paradox that the most dangerous forces in the human psyche are not external threats, but internal shadows masquerading as virtue, reason, or love. He believed that the greatest threat to humanity wasn't war, or politics, or even death. It was the unconscious self that refuses to be seen for what it truly is. And in this video, we're not just exposing 6 dangerous personality types Jung warned us about. Jung didn't believe in evil as a static thing. He believed that evil evolves with the person, that it wears masks, that it infiltrates our goodness, our intelligence, and even our compassion. The first dangerous personality type he warned us about is the moral narcissist. This person doesn't dominate through aggression, but through righteousness. They believe they are good, so good, in fact, that they can no longer see their own shadow. They weaponize their ideals. They use moral superiority to manipulate, to shame, to control. And the scariest part, they genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. You've seen this before. The activist who becomes authoritarian, the parent who suffocates their child for their own good, the friend who can't be questioned because they're on the right side. Jung warned that when someone is certain of their own purity, they are often blind to the destruction they leave behind. So ask yourself, have I ever used my values to dominate someone else, even if I didn't realize it?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Next is the passive manipulator, a type that hides not behind strength, but behind helplessness. This person appears fragile, sensitive, vulnerable, but make no mistake, they are masters of control. Jung understood that manipulation is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it cries. Sometimes it makes you feel responsible for someone else's pain. These people use guilt like an artist uses paint. They extract loyalty by appearing broken. They create obligation by appearing small. But beneath the surface is a deep need for power, just expressed in reverse. They don't dominate you by force, they make you volunteer your freedom. And the lesson here is brutal. Not everyone who needs help wants to be healed. Some want your attention, your energy, your life forever. Are there people in your life who always need saving, but never seem to change? Jung's third dangerous archetype is the intellectual sadist. They don't raise their voice. They raise their logic. They dismantle others with facts, with reason, with icy precision. On the surface, they seem brilliant, rational, articulate, even admirable. But their intelligence is a weapon, not a tool. They use it to dominate, not to understand. They don't ask questions to learn, they ask to trap. They don't debate to explore, they debate to destroy. Jung saw this type as particularly dangerous because they often rise to positions of influence. They become thought leaders, professors, CEOs, or online truth-tellers. But deep inside, they are not seeking truth. They are seeking superiority. Their ideas are a mask for their emptiness. And if you disagree with them, you become not just wrong, you become stupid. Have you ever been in a conversation where you walked away feeling smaller? Not because you lacked knowledge, but because someone used knowledge to make you feel worthless. Here's where the psychology turns inward. Jung believed that the reason we fall for these dangerous types isn't because we're weak. It's because we're unconscious. We don't fully know our own shadow, so when we see it in someone else, we either fall under its spell or run from it. The truth is, we are all vulnerable to these types because they reflect something inside us. Our own hunger to be seen, our own fear of being powerless, our own secret desire to control, to dominate, to be admired without question. Jung's greatest warning wasn't about them, it was about us. He said, "The world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know, the world will tell you." That's the real danger, not the narcissist, not the manipulator, not the sadist, but the self that refuses to wake up. So now I ask you, not as a philosopher, but as a fellow soul on this chaotic journey, which of these traits have you seen in others? And more painfully, have you seen glimpses of them in yourself? Smiles that hide the abyss, how charm and empathy become weapons in the wrong hands. There's a kind of danger that doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't chase you down, it draws you in. It doesn't look like a threat. It looks like a friend, a lover, a mentor. This is the danger of the fourth personality type Carl Jung warned us about, the charming predator. Unlike the obvious manipulators, this person disarms you with warmth, humor, and connection. They appear empathetic. They seem to understand you better than anyone else. And that's precisely why they're so dangerous. Because they don't take your trust, they make you offer it. And once they have it, they begin the slow, almost imperceptible process of domination. Not through fear, but through attachment. Jung believed that charm, when not rooted in integrity, becomes a mask for the shadow. He saw how some people weaponize emotional intelligence not to connect, but to control. These are the people who know exactly what to say to make you feel seen, validated, special. But over time, that intimacy becomes leverage. They begin to reframe your reality. They question your other relationships. They isolate you not with force, but with affection. And suddenly your world shrinks and they are at the center of it. They are the sun and you orbit them. But it's not love. It's absorption. And the most terrifying part? You may not realize any of this until it's far too late. Ask yourself this. Have you ever been drawn to someone who made you feel amazing, but also strangely dependent? Whose approval felt like oxygen? That's not connection. That's enchantment. And enchantment is not love, it's a spell. Jung warned that when someone seems too good to be true, it often means they've learned how to hide their shadow behind a smile. Their empathy is performative. Their kindness is conditional. And their love is a contract, one you didn't realize you were signing. The fifth dangerous personality is the wounded tyrant. This is someone who has suffered deeply. They have been abandoned, betrayed, humiliated. But instead of healing, they made a decision. Never again would they be vulnerable. Never again would they be powerless. So they build walls. They become harsh, controlling, even cruel, not because they are evil, but because they are afraid. And that's what makes them so unpredictable. Their aggression is not about dominance, it's about protection. And when they feel threatened, they don't retreat, they attack. Jung saw this type as a tragedy, because they could have been healers, guides, creators, but their pain hardened into armor. And now they hurt others in the name of never being hurt again. You may know someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. Someone who once loved openly, but now distrusts everyone. Someone who once believed in people, but now expects betrayal. Jung believed that unless we confront our wounds, they will become our weapons. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The wounded tyrant doesn't see themselves as dangerous. They see themselves as realists. But realism becomes cruelty when it's rooted in unresolved trauma. So I ask you, what pain have you refused to feel? And how is it shaping the way you treat others? And now we arrive at one of the darkest archetypes Jung explored, the shadow possessed. This is not just a personality type. This is what happens when someone becomes completely overtaken by the parts of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. the envy, the rage, the lust, the hunger for power. These people have no inner witness left, no observing self. They are driven by impulses they don't question. They are often charismatic, bold, even visionary. But they leave destruction wherever they go. They are not aware of their shadow, they are the shadow. Jung saw this in tyrants, cult leaders, and even some artists. But he also saw it in everyday people who surrendered their self-awareness and let their darker instincts take the wheel. The scariest thing about the shadow possessed, they believe they are free, but they are the most enslaved. They are puppets of their own unconscious. And if you challenge them, they don't reflect, they retaliate. You become the enemy, the one who must be silenced, discredited, erased. Jung believed this type was the most dangerous because they often rise to power. They are magnetic. People follow them. And by the time you realize you were following a shadow, it's too late. But here's the twist. Jung didn't just warn us about others. He believed that each of us has the capacity to become any of these types. And that's where the real journey begins, not in judging others, but in daring to see our own reflection in the darkness. So I leave you with this question. What part of your personality have you never dared to question because it makes you feel powerful? The mirror of the mind, how Jung's shadow theory reveals the hidden truth about ourselves. Carl Jung's greatest contribution to psychology wasn't simply identifying dangerous personalities. It was giving us the tools to understand why they exist in the first place. And more importantly, why they exist within us. His concept of the shadow wasn't some abstract metaphor. It was a psychological mirror, a way to confront the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or project onto others. The shadow is everything we don't want to be, but also everything we are. And the more we ignore it, the more it controls us. The 6 dangerous personality types we've been exploring, they don't just live out in the world, they live in the corners of our own unconscious. And until we see that, we will continue to fear the darkness in others while unknowingly feeding it in ourselves. You see, the shadow doesn't just appear as rage, envy, lust, or manipulation. Sometimes it hides behind our strengths. Our intelligence, our charm, our ambition, these can all become masks for the parts of ourselves we're unwilling to face. Jung believed that if we don't integrate the shadow, it will manifest in distorted, destructive ways. That's why the most dangerous people often seem the most put together. The politician who preaches virtue while hiding corruption. The therapist who understands everyone but can't face their own emptiness. The friend who's always nice but secretly resents everyone. These aren't just cases of hypocrisy, they are symptoms of shadow possession. And the only antidote is self-awareness, radical honesty, and the courage to descend into your own darkness. Have you ever caught yourself doing something that shocked you? Saying something cruel, thinking something petty, or acting in a way that felt foreign even to you? That's the shadow leaking through. Jung said, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. This means that facing the shadow isn't just about insight, it's about integrity. Most of us spend our lives trying to be good people, but Jung would argue that goodness without consciousness is just performance. And performance, over time, becomes repression. And repression always leads to projection. So we begin to see our own disowned traits in others. We hate the narcissist because we haven't faced our own ego. We despise the manipulator because we can't admit how we manipulate. We fear the tyrant because we've never examined our own hunger for control. When we project our shadow onto others, we feel temporarily safe, but we also stay powerless, because we've handed over responsibility for our darkness to them. Jung's work was a call to reclaim that power, to own every part of ourselves, the noble and the shameful, the compassionate and the cruel. Because only then can we choose how to act. As long as we remain unconscious, we're not choosing, we're reacting. We're replaying old wounds, old patterns, old fears, and we're blaming the world for the chaos we haven't yet faced within. This is where philosophy meets transformation, because the purpose of shadow work isn't just to avoid becoming dangerous, it's to become whole. Jung didn't want us to be saints. He wanted us to be real. And real people are complex. They feel anger, jealousy, lust, grief. But they know these feelings. They don't act them out blindly. They integrate them. They learn from them. They use them as fuel for growth, not weapons against others. That's what individuation means, a process of becoming fully yourself. Not by cutting away the dark, but by bringing it to light. So, let's not make the mistake of thinking this conversation is about other people. The 6 dangerous types are not exotic creatures roaming the earth. They are projections of the unexamined self. And the deeper truth is this: every time you judge someone harshly, every time you label someone as toxic or evil or selfish, pause. Ask, what part of me am I disowning? Because that question, that moment of reflection, might be the start of real freedom, not from others, but from the unconscious patterns that keep you small, reactive, and afraid. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's the work. Not to escape the darkness, but to walk into it with your eyes open. To meet yourself there, to sit with what you find, and to emerge not pure, not perfect, but whole. So now I ask you, what truth about yourself have you avoided because you were afraid of what it might mean? And what would happen if you finally faced it? Breaking the spell, how to protect yourself from the 6 dangerous personality types without losing your humanity. Awareness is not enough. It's the beginning, but it's not the cure. Once we've seen the dangerous personality types, not just in others, but in ourselves, we're faced with a daunting task. What do we do now? How do we protect ourselves from manipulation, narcissism, emotional predation, and psychological control without becoming cold, paranoid, or emotionally unavailable? How do we keep our hearts open in a world filled with shadows? This is where the real work begins, not just understanding Jung's insights, but living them. And that means learning how to set boundaries without building walls, how to recognize danger without becoming cynical, and how to stay awake in a world that rewards those who sleepwalk through life. The first step is to develop what Jung called the observing self. This is the part of you that can watch your own thoughts, feelings, and impulses without being consumed by them. It's the awareness behind the emotion. When you feel intensely drawn to someone, whether it's admiration, attraction, or even hatred, pause. Ask, what is this person activating in me? Is it admiration, or is it idealization? Is it connection, or is it dependency? Is it love, or is it a trauma bond masquerading as fate? Dangerous people often bypass your rational mind by appealing directly to your emotions. They create intensity, urgency, confusion. If you can slow that down even by a few seconds, you take back enormous power. Second, learn to trust your discomfort. One of the most subtle red flags is the feeling that something is off, but you can't explain why. Maybe they say all the right things, but it feels mechanical. Maybe they listen closely, but you don't feel seen. Maybe they flatter you, but your gut still tenses. Jung believed the unconscious knows long before the conscious mind does. And yet most of us are trained to ignore these signals. We tell ourselves we're being judgmental or paranoid or too sensitive. But here's the truth. Your body often knows before your mind does. If you feel consistently drained, anxious, or confused around someone, that is data. Don't rationalize it away. Investigate it. You don't need a reason to protect your peace. Third, Understand that boundaries are not punishments, they are filters. You don't set boundaries to control others. You set them to see who respects them and who doesn't. This is where many people struggle. They think being kind means being endlessly available, but that's not kindness. That's self-erasure. Jung would argue that boundaries are not only psychological, they are spiritual. They are how we preserve our integrity, how we protect the sacred space of the self. And while dangerous personalities hate boundaries, healthy people respect them. So when someone pushes past your limits, minimizes your needs, or punishes you for saying no, don't explain yourself endlessly. Observe, because they're telling you exactly who they are. And finally, and this is the hardest part, learn to forgive yourself for the times you didn't see it. We've all fallen under the spell. We've trusted the wrong people, ignored the right instincts, confused intensity for truth. Jung never expected us to be flawless. He expected us to learn. The goal is not to live in fear of dark personalities, it's to stop abandoning ourselves when they appear. The more you know your own shadow, the harder it is for someone else to use it against you. The more you understand your worth, the less appealing false flattery becomes. The more you trust your truth, the less likely you are to get lost in someone else's story. So here we are, at the end of a journey that is really just the beginning. Because the world will always contain danger, but that doesn't mean we must become hard or bitter. It means we must become conscious. We must walk with open eyes, open hearts, and strong boundaries. And when we do, we not only protect ourselves, we transform the world around us. So ask yourself, one last time, what would your life look like if you truly trusted your inner voice and refused to betray yourself again for anyone, no matter how charming, how wounded, or how powerful they seemed? That's not just self-protection, that's self-liberation.